why you've been taught to keep quiet. Welcome to the Hopefulist with me, Wendy McClure. This is where we turn those nasty, negative thoughts into positive and work toward a happy, fulfilled life. Now, let's get started. Good morning. Happy Monday if you are listening indeed in the morning and on Monday. It's the start of a brand new week, and I am so excited for you to be here. Quick update on the vow to never diet again. The struggle is real. The struggle continues. I have to say there is really good and bad with both outlooks. The most important thing I think to me with the no dieting approach is I'm not obsessed with food. When I'm on a diet, I'm literally obsessed with food. All I can think about is my next meal. All I can think about is what I can't have. And then when I go off on a binge, all I can think about is how much can I cram in. Also, when it comes to the dieting mentality, it's always that last meal syndrome. You know what I'm talking about? The night before you start your next diet, I'm going to eat everything I have in the house that could possibly tempt me. So you end up eating 3 times as much food as you normally would. Those are some of the benefits of not dieting. Of course, the biggest con is that I've put on weight and I don't feel good about myself. So I always have this tendency to look at things in black and white. And I think this might be an area, and according to the book I read, Intuitive Eating, I'm not supposed to do this. I'm supposed to eat when I feel hungry, eat what I am craving, and eat until I'm satisfied, which I don't expect something like that to happen overnight. I haven't been working as hard at it as I should be, but I think maybe a little bit of gray here is being called for. You know, just being a little more mindful of my choices. And I think the biggest thing is to not guilt myself when I eat something that I deem I shouldn't be eating. Because in essence, I really don't want to follow those types of rules. If I have a donut, I don't want to be like, oh, okay, well, I blew it. I might as well just go buy a dozen now. No, I don't want to do that anymore. So I'm looking to find a little gray in this area. I'm working on portion control as well. Maybe if I just cut down my portions a little bit, that will be helpful. Getting back in my workout routine, that will help me want to do better, to feel better, and it will help me feel better, indeed. It also makes me stronger and more energetic. So all of these things are combined to work together. So that is the latest with my vow to never diet again, which means I'm still not sure if that's actually true. But I will keep you posted, okay? I'm going to try something a little bit in that gray area this week. I'm going to do a little bit of what the book tells me not to do, which is watch. Watch what I'm eating. But the most important thing is to not be guilt-ridden if I eat something that I really didn't think that I should have. It's the guilt. The guilt gets us every time. And I've said this a million times. You cannot shame your way to success. It's just never going to happen. The quote of the day. Well, give your bad habits the heave-ho. That's right. Successful people have good habits. Unsuccessful people have loser habits, because our habits are all the things we do automatically without thinking, like brushing your teeth. They help to define who we are. So if you're in the habit of getting up and working out every morning, you're in shape. If you're in the habit of never doing what you say you're going to do, you are unreliable. That is what I've been struggling with this past year or so. Is I keep saying I'm going to get up, I'm going to do this, and then I don't. So pay attention to the areas of your life that you're not so thrilled about. figure out which bad habits helped create them, and trade those habits in for some good ones. For the last year or so, when it comes to this business, I have all these amazing ideas. I journal about them in the morning. And then as I go through the day, I'm like, okay, I got to do this on social media. And then I got to do this. And I got to send out an email. And I got to do this on the website. And I, in essence, don't do any of them. Now, my buddy Brendan Burchard says that is a problem that I'm having with my own identity. I don't identify myself as a business owner and somebody who actually does these things. I'm going to choose to believe him because that's better than being just lazy. But, and I've talked about this before, is when you consistently say you're going to do something and you don't, your brain, your own brain doesn't even believe you when you say you're going to do something. Like it's Monday. Say that, I tell myself, I'm going to, as soon as I'm done this podcast, I'm going to do all my social media posts for the week. I'm going to create them. I'm going to put them in a schedule, and I'm going to make sure that they go for the rest of the week. And then I don't actually do that because I haven't. So even when I do have the intention to do that, my brain's like, yeah, right. And the only way you can show your brain who's boss is to actually do it. And that is what I am going to do as soon as I am done this podcast, is I am going to create the social media posts for this week. Not necessarily going to schedule them. I'm not really at that part yet. I'm not really at that level. I can't quite figure out the whole scheduling thing, so I usually do it in real time, which is in essence a lot of the times why they drop off. So I've just got to get my crap together and follow through. Do what I say I'm going to do so that at the very least my own brain believes me. You get what I'm saying, right? Okay, so I wanted to talk today about Gen X women, and not really even Gen X women, all women, and why we have been conditioned to keep quiet our whole lives. We have been conditioned to be small. Little girls are sugar and spice and everything nice. What does that mean? That means we have to be nice all the time. These are things we have been hearing since we were born. That's just one very small example of how words are used to condition us. Girls are sweet and nice and polite, right? We've been taught this since as far as we can remember. And I wanted to talk about some of the reasons that this is. I think that our mothers teach us to stay quiet, stay small, keep our opinions to ourselves. One of the main reasons, and I think that they have very good intentions, is safety. Mothers are worried that their little girls or their teenage girls or their young adult daughters are going to put themselves in harm's way by speaking out too much. What happens when you speak out? You bring attention to yourself, and that can potentially be dangerous if you're in certain situations. Some men can be dangerous. And when you're putting yourself out there like that, you increase your likelihood of facing that danger. But if you're quiet and stay small, you're going to blend into the background. So I think that's what our mothers were thinking when they taught us this stuff. Not to mention they're just regurgitating what they were taught as little girls. But part of it is safety. So it comes from a good place. Doesn't mean you should do it, but it comes from a good place. But this is what we've been taught our whole lives, okay? Another reason we've been taught to keep quiet, to be small, is, you guessed it, to get a man. That's right. Women, again, supposed to be quiet and polite and say nice things and never be angry. And this will get you a good man. Yeah. Because nobody likes a loudmouth woman. You know, there's all kinds of things and names that can be said about those type of women. I've gone through, dating in my early 20s. And I remember specifically one time that I was dating somebody and he stood me up for my birthday. And when I did finally talk to him, I let him have it. I never saw him again because he told my friend, well, she was just so angry when I talked to her. And, I just don't know if I want to get involved in that. Oh, I'm so sorry that you were a shit and stood me up on my birthday and I had the audacity to get angry and to express that anger. Yeah, this was another lesson to me to keep quiet. Because when that situation happened, of course I didn't think at the time, oh, well, he's an idiot, and it's a good thing that I learned early on that I can't express myself around him. No, of course, what I thought was, in the future, I need to shut up. In the future, if I get mad, I need to suppress that. I can't let it show. These are just different ways that women are taught and conditioned to be quiet our whole lives. Another reason that it's so hard for us to speak up and to say how we feel or what we want or what we think our needs are, as Gen X, growing up in that time, I can't speak for everyone, but I know a lot of women in Generation X grew up with the theory of when they were upset about something, when they were crying, their parents often said to them, are you ready? Oh, I'll give you something to cry about. And I am sure that you have heard that at one time or another in your life, whether it was being directed at you or somebody that you know. And what does that statement say? I'll give you something to cry about. What that does is diminish every feeling that you were having in that moment. That the reason that you were upset was not worthy of being upset. That if you're upset over something like that, oh, I'll give you something to really be upset about. So it's just making you, again, feel like you can't speak your mind. You can't say how you feel because, one, you're being belittled for it, and two, they don't care. That's why they always say that Gen X is the generation that took care of themselves, because this is what we faced as we grew up. We had to learn how to satisfy our own needs because nobody was interested in helping us with our needs, our thoughts, our desires. And this is just the teeniest little tip. So much that goes into this. The other thing that may sound familiar to you, children are to be seen and not heard. Means we didn't have a voice. I remember when I was really little, my parents had people over. I wasn't even allowed in the kitchen when there was adults gathered. I would walk in the kitchen. What do you want? What are you doing in here? Go to your room. Like, we weren't even allowed to be around them. So what kind of ideas does that give a little child about their worth, about what they're allowed to do and say and feel? I don't know. I think that at the time I thought when I was a grown up, that's my time. But that was a long time from the 5-year-old who wandered into the kitchen and was told to get out and go back to her room. And then, of course, as I say constantly, because it's so true and so sad, Gen X has gotten gypped all along, because when we were kids, life was all about our parents. So we thought that when we got older, life would be about us. But no, alas. Somewhere along the line, things changed, and our children became the focus of the world, satisfying their needs and their wants and their desires and making sure that they felt emotionally safe, which is great because we had none of that. But what it also means is that we needed to take a back seat again now to the children. It's never been Gen X's time. And now we're getting older. A lot of us have to take care of our parents. A lot of us are maybe getting into grandchildren and are helping out with the grandchildren. And that's why I say we are waiting no longer. Our time is now, and we have to claim it. We have to say it out loud. We have to stand tall and be willing to ask and to demand what we want in this life. Right? So, I just read something from the holistic psychologist, which I thought was so fascinating. If you are not following her on Instagram, she's on Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, all the channels. You have to follow her, the holistic psychologist. She is fantastic. And she just had a post up talking about people who were physically or mentally abused. And I think that I fall into that category of mentally abused for the fact that she has helped me discover that a lot of what I grew up with was mental abuse. And I don't think that, I'm not bashing my parents by saying that they didn't mentally abuse me on purpose, but just by the way that they were. I grew up in a very volatile environment where one or both parents could explode in anger at any moment, where if I did something wrong, I would often get the silent treatment, sometimes for days. And what this does to you as a child is makes you read everybody else's mood. And your job in your brain is to regulate their moods to make sure there's no bursts of anger, that you don't do anything that would cause a silent treatment to happen for days. You're constantly looking at how to take care of other people's moods. Do you see what I'm saying here? This is so good. This stuff is so good. And like I said, I've learned all of this from the holistic psychologist. So when you are a child and you are constantly trying to figure out how to keep everybody's mood stable, that puts you in the caretaker role when you're just a child. And it just doesn't go away when you grow up. In fact, a lot of times it gets worse, right? So this is why when you are older, you are constantly fearful of saying the wrong thing, of doing the wrong thing, of making people upset, of having people just up and leave your life. This is why I've had such anxiety in my life. I remember the first therapist that told me, you have social anxiety. It's, black and white, clear as day, social anxiety. I'm like, what are you talking about? I never shut up. I can walk into a room of strangers and have 10 best friends by the end of the night. She's like, yeah, but what happens when you go home? Alas, she was absolutely right. When I went home, I was like, oh, did I say too much? Oh, did I come on too strong? Oh, did I say the wrong thing to that person? Do you think that this person did like me, or were they just like, tolerating me? And what about that person over there? I saw them kind of give me a side eye a little bit. Oh, no, I think that I came across the wrong way. Yes, that's what I did when I got home. And, this was all involuntary. I never wanted to come home and think these things. I wanted to come home and be like, wow, what a great time. And go to bed. But that never happened. Constant worry, anxiety, extreme stress. That comes, me personally, from the chaotic upbringing that I had. That's just part of it. But that's a huge part of it. So think about your upbringing. What was it like? If it was anything like mine, chaotic, it could be explosive. It could be the silent treatment. And, I grew up with the silent treatment, and I think about it now, and it's so devastating, And I think to this day, one of my hugest pet peeves is to be ignored. That will make me extremely angry. Like, even if my husband takes too long in answering a question, I'm like, hello? It's a trigger for me. And I'm really just kind of coming up and realizing this now. I think that the silent treatment is probably the main reason for that. Because being completely ignored for days at a time will do something to you mentally, especially by the people who are supposed to love you most in this whole world. Right? And again, I'm not putting 100% of the blame on the parents here. A lot of them are just doing what they learned, and they didn't live in a time that we live in now where we can explore all of this stuff and understand why we do the things that we do. Maybe if they were in a time where that was known, acceptable, possible, things could have been different for everybody. But that's just not the case. So that's why it's so good to delve down now and see how these patterns repeat themselves and to be the one to stop the bad pattern. So now that we know these things, and it's always so awesome to, come to realizations and understandings about things that have always happened in our lives. And it's like all of a sudden it's like this light bulb goes off. You're like, oh my gosh, that makes so much sense. Okay, so what now? What do we do now? Well, a couple of things. When it comes to the safety issue, be confident when you speak. Again, speak out. Speak your truth. Stand up straight. Look people in the eye. Have a sense that you know who you are okay with who you are, and you're willing to express who you are. Stand up straight, put your hands on your hips. You're going to feel stronger just doing that. And what it does is send a message to others that you're not someone to be messed with. Obviously, there's always going to be exceptions. That's not what I'm saying. Do not put yourself in dangerous situations, but stand up for yourself and speak your truth. And I even have it's kind of a really sad example. This is what conditioning does to us. When I was in my 20s, I went to work at this place, and I later found out the general manager of this place sexually harassed every woman that worked there. He never sexually harassed me, and this is where the conditioning comes in. I almost felt slighted. Well, why didn't he even try with me? Am I that unattractive? That's what conditioning does. I felt left out because he didn't try to sexually harass me. Now, at the time, it felt justified. At the time, it felt like, well, what's wrong with me? Now I realize, I shouldn't want that. Nobody should want that. But what I realize is the reason that he never attempted it with me is not because I was unattractive, Not because he didn't want to get with this, I say jokingly. It's because of how I presented myself. It's because of who I was. And I believe he never tried it because he knew he couldn't get away with it. Because even though I say I felt a little gypped, if he would have tried it on me, I would have done everything in my power to let it be known that he did that to me. And he knew that. So he knew better than to even attempt it. So, be yourself, speak your truth, but always keep safety in the back of your mind. What else can we do? Well, you are now allowed to have an opinion. Things are changing. Not quickly enough, but things are changing. Women are allowed to have opinions now. You are allowed to speak them. You are allowed to get angry. If someone stands you up for your birthday, yeah, you're allowed to get mad about that. You're allowed to yell about that. You're allowed to say how you feel. And the people in your life should be okay with that. The people in your life should truly want to know how you feel. Now, I was talking to a friend of mine recently. If this is something that you have not done in the past, you will get pushback. There will be people close to you in your life that will not like this new, bold, speaking your truth woman because they're not used to it. But you continue to stand your ground. You continue to stand in your truth because you have to live with yourself. You are the most important one when it comes to satisfying your needs and being the person that you truly want to be. And that's what this is all about. Becoming the person that we've always meant to be. But we've been so conditioned by so many things. That person has never been allowed to come out. So this is all a discovery on how to find our true selves, the truest version of ourselves, the one that we thought we may have been back when we were a little girl before all of this language and this conditioning beat us into submission. So always speak your truth, but be aware some people won't like it. But that's okay. The other thing that I want you to remember moving forward is not only are you allowed an opinion, but you are entitled to have your needs heard and met. We have been so conditioned to never speak of what it is we truly want, what we feel we need, because it always came back to bite us in some way, shape, or form. But you are allowed to say to people in your family, look, I need help. You know, I'm working 40 hours a week. The dishes are constantly piled up in the sink. The laundry is overflowing. I need somebody to help me. That's okay. And your family should help. Again, if they're not used to being asked to do stuff, it will be a struggle. But you keep it up. You say, I need help. I need you to do this. I need. This is what I need. Or with, a partner, your spouse. I sometimes need to just be held. Sometimes I just want to come home from a long day at work and cuddle, snuggle, whatever, however you say it. If this is something that you desire, speak it. Tell him. Let it be known. Sometimes I just need you to listen. Sometimes I need you to just get me a glass of wine. You are allowed to say what you need, and it is perfectly reasonable for you to expect those needs to at least attempt to be met. Yes, this is true. So I hope that you enjoyed this week's podcast. I certainly had a fabulous time doing it. I hope that you learned some stuff about yourself and how to move forward and move more toward the person that you've always been, the one that's been buried deep down inside. So we're going to dig little by little each week. We're going to pick away until we find that woman that you've always been, but you've been buried under all of this conditioning and rules. And we're going to figure it out together. We're going to find her, and we're going to be so much better because of it. So I'm so happy to have you guys on this journey with me. I can't wait to dig in more and more each week. And if you enjoyed this episode, please share it with a friend. If you haven't already subscribed to the podcast, hit that follow button right now. And like I said, tell your friends about the podcast. Share one of my social media posts, or just copy the link right now to the podcast and send it to somebody that you think would benefit from hearing it as well. So thank you so much for that. I want you to go on out there and be badass this week. You know I'm here, always cheering you on. Thank you for listening to The Hopefulist. Now, don't you feel good? Make sure you come back next week. See you then.